Hello and welcome to the Delphian Podcast.
Delphian is an artist-led nomadic gallery focusing on emerging and early career artists.
Each episode will feature a different art world practitioner, from artists and gallerists to collectors and curators.
If you like today's episode, please like, share and subscribe. Hello and welcome to the next edition of the Delphian Podcast. I am Benjamin Murphy, and because of the self-imposed quarantine that we've had to undergo due to coronavirus, this is a special edition in which we weren't able to bring any guests here, but luckily me and my guest live together. My guest is your other co-host, Nick JS Thompson.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, so a bit of an odd one this time, isn't it?
Yep.
So, all right, for people who know you as 50% of Delphian, and may not necessarily know you as an artist or why you entered the art world.
Yeah.
Explain a little bit. It's a little bit odd me asking you questions that I know the answer to.
Yeah.
But for the benefit of the listeners, maybe tell them a little bit about your art practice and how you entered the art world.
Okay. So basically my work is photography, and I first got into that a long time ago when I was maybe 14 or 15, and I used to ride BMX and basically used to document the subculture, I suppose, looking back at it now. But at the time it was just taking pictures of my friends riding bikes and having a good time, really. And I sort of knew that I wanted to be a photographer, and as I got more into it, I started taking pictures of other things as well, landscapes and just sort of my local area. And then, as you do when you're a young photographer. And then, so I wanted to be a photographer, and I didn't know what sort of photography I wanted to do for a long time. And I went through many stages. For a while I wanted to be a product photographer, and then
incredibly dull.
Yeah.
Are you glad that you didn't go down that route?
No, I used to quite enjoy it, setting up still lifes of food and styling shoots and stuff like that. Yeah, I used to really enjoy it.
Did you do things like use PVA glue instead of cream and all of that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I used to do that. And then I wanted to be a documentary photographer for a long time, sort of a photojournalist, and sort of had visions of myself being some sort of Don McCullin war photographer, but then realised I didn't have the balls for that. So
you didn't want to get your legs blown off.
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, and then I just sort of was taking pictures of what was around me, and where I grew up was in the countryside, and a small town called Banbury. So I used to take pictures around there, and I used to like taking pictures of sort of stuff when it was empty, and that's basically been what I've taken pictures of for many years now. Just I used to get up really early, like 4 or 5 in the morning, go into town and take pictures of the aftermath of nights out and empty town centres and that sort of thing. So yeah, basically I didn't really know what to do with my photography at that point, and I didn't really know what area I wanted to go into. So I did a art foundation course for a year, did all sorts of stuff from sculpture, and obviously as you do on your foundation, sculpture, design, all sorts of things, and still sort of thought that I wanted to carry on with photography. It was my favourite. And then I was going to go to university to do photography, but in the end I turned down the place that I got right at the last minute and didn't go, and went travelling instead.
That's a good question, actually. So a lot of people often ask us, is going to art university necessary? Do you ever feel like you regret not going?
Yeah, in some ways, but in some ways not. I think looking back, I think I would have gained a good grounding in theory and a lot of the sort of academic side of it. In practical sense, I don't think I missed out on anything, because basically when I moved to London and worked as a photographic assistant for several years. So practically, I learned everything on the job and was earning money at the same time, not getting myself into massive debt, which was always a plus.
That's true. So you didn't go to university, and I did, and we're both basically in exactly the same place now. So although I have a lot of student debt, so
yeah.
So yeah, I suppose that proves that it is possible. Do you ever feel like so when we did the podcast with Charlie Peters and Gemma Hickman, it was a panel discussion. One of the questions that we got asked was, do you ever feel like there are barriers within the art world because you didn't go to university? So not just in terms of like what you may have missed out on, but do you ever think that people know that you didn't go to university, and do you ever feel like excluded from anything because of that?
No, not unless I tell them. And in fact,
nobody asks, surely.
Nobody's ever asked. And to be honest, the only barrier I think would probably be in my own head.
Yeah.
I think the sort of self-consciousness and sort of self-doubt is the only thing that would ever hold you back from that aspect. That's from my point of view.
So maybe tell the listeners a little bit about 55 and how you first started working in the art world.
Yeah, so when I was traveling, I met someone who knew a photographer called Christopher Sims who lived in London, and when I got back from traveling, she contacted me and asked me whether I was available because he was looking for an assistant. So I applied and then moved to London to become his assistant. And as I was started working with him, he had this idea to start, at first it was sort of a online interview channel on YouTube, where we'd go to fashion weeks and other events and then interview people, artists, celebrities, all sorts of things. And it was pretty much a big blag. We had a camera and a microphone, and we used to rock up and sort of
walk the walk.
Yeah, do on the fly interviews, and then from that it progressed onto a magazine that we used to release biannually called 55 Pages. So I became the editor on that magazine, and we used to cover arts, fashion, culture, that sort of thing. And that's how we first met. I don't know, what year was that? 2012?
It was November 2012. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we featured Ben on when he was doing his first solo show in London.
Yeah.
And then we met through that and then became friends, and that's how the Delphian partnership started.
So what made you decide that you wanted to get into curation, and why did we start Delphian?
So I think, well, I mean, for years we'd sort of unofficially co-curated each other's shows, hadn't we? So each time we'd have an exhibition of our own work, we'd help each other out with layouts and which work should be included, and just general curation, really. And I think, and we also used to help out if you'd done a couple of group shows, hadn't you? Like the Christmas show that you organised and stuff that I was in.
Fuck Christmas, yeah. That was 2012 as well.
Yeah.
December.
So I think it just was a natural progression, really. It's sort of saying, well, we're doing this for ourselves, why don't we do this for other people and make it a bit more serious? And then it jumped into a lot more of a solidified form in 2017 when Stuart Waplington from the Print Space.
Or 2017?
2017, I think.
I suppose I should know that, really, shouldn't
I? 2017, yeah. When Stuart Waplington from the Print Space approached us and said that he had a website that he'd made for a gallery that he was going to start through the Print Space, and he didn't have time to run it. He built this thing, and he said that he'd been looking at some of the sort of shows that we've been doing over the last couple of years, and he said, did we want to have it? And so he gifted it to us, basically, and it was
free website,
incredible opportunity. It had e-commerce built into it and all sorts. So yeah, it was a great.
We totally rebranded, stripped everything out, and added all our own artwork and stuff.
So that's how we've sort of came into our current form.
Yeah. So it's kind of spiraled a little bit out of control, isn't it? Like, we didn't really plan for it to become what it has.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of like, let's just do a couple shows.
Yeah.
And then now it's like, it's just this beast. It's taken over our lives.
It's moving and you can't stop it.
Yeah. So how has running a gallery affected your own work?
I think it's the way that I've put on exhibitions has changed quite a bit. So my last solo show, Perforations, was a lot more immersive, and it had a lot of other aspects that I'd never sort of included in in exhibitions before. A lot of my previous solo shows had been photos on walls, in frames, very classic. And I think that the presentation and the curation of my last show had changed a lot.
It was quite experimental, and there was like sculptural elements made out of salvaged neon tube lights.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think running Delphian has made you? Do you think it's affected the amount of work you make? Because I think I make less work now.
Yeah.
I think it's probably because we're spending so much time doing Delphian.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, I don't make anywhere near as much work as I used to.
Do you think it's a worthwhile trade-off?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I suppose you must do, or you wouldn't be doing it. But
Yeah. I mean, Delphian Gallery is a lot more successful than I am as a personal artist. So
yeah, I think the same is probably true for me. Yeah.
So I suppose in that way, it's worth the trade-off.
Yeah, we've got probably, 10 years, no, maybe a little less, 8 years experience being an artist.
Yeah.
Delphian's only 2 years old, and already it's way more successful than both of us combined, probably.
Yeah.
So, next question. What is it? I don't know. Usually I will let you fill these gaps with a question, but you're being interviewed, so the responsibility is all on me. So has it taught you anything about being an artist? Because I know for me, there's a lot of the stuff that goes on behind the curtain in the organisation of an exhibition or the admin and all of that stuff that galleries do that artists might not appreciate. And doing it myself as a gallery for other people has maybe made me realise and has made me approach my own work in a different way.
It's definitely made me realise why galleries take 50%.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely earn it.
Yeah.
Or some galleries do.
Yeah. I don't know if it's affected my personal practice, to be honest, that much. No, I don't think I'd say it would.
All right. Do you want a big question?
Yeah, go on then.
One of the emergency ones that we ask everyone. Or maybe a different one. What's the biggest mistake you've made as an artist or as a gallery? Or
Ooh. Fuck, I don't know what that is.
Whilst you're thinking, maybe I can throw one out there.
Yeah.
My last London solo show, we opened on what was both the hottest day of the year and was the day of the World Cup final. We opened at the time of the... No, it wasn't the final, it was the semi-final. But I think England were playing in it.
Yeah.
It was the semi-final. Or was it the quarter-final?
I don't know anything about football, but yeah.
I think it was the semi-final, mate. I'm not sure. But it was a big match anyway. It was the hottest day of the year. We opened at like 7 p.m. when the football started in an area of London that we didn't really know.
A new area we'd never shown in before, yeah.
So maybe, I mean, it was a learning experience, but maybe mine was that.
Probably looking back, probably wasn't the best decision. but then that's good. It's interesting to say that because it's hard to, if you're planning these things months in advance. We didn't know that England would make it through to that stage.
I didn't even know there was a World Cup that year.
So there's definitely things out of your control that you can't alter.
Yeah. I think it was also Marcel Proust's birthday. We opened on Proust's birthday, and that blinded me to anything else. Because the space that we hired said that week is free, but it's summer. They said Freeze Week is also currently free, and I thought a lot of the shows inspired by Proust, it would be opening on Proust's birthday, so let's do that.
Yeah.
And then fucking hottest day of the year. Yeah. So maybe mine was that. What was yours? I mean, I suppose you were involved in that decision too, because it was.
So yeah, I think one mistake I've made it a couple of times actually, is overestimating demand for your own work. So ordering like 100 copies of a photo book and selling 5, and then they sit in a box underneath your bed for months. So
I think we've all done that kind of thing to varying degrees.
So yeah, that's a bad one. I think also when you're starting out on a project, not doing enough research doing research is an incredibly important part of it, and I've definitely embarked on projects when I haven't done anywhere near enough, and then it becomes apparent later on down the line that I should have done more, because it would have helped me in ways down the line.
I've got a good example actually, something that maybe wasn't a mistake but was pretty fucking reckless. Explain Phano.
Okay, so that was one of my exhibitions, was a body of work called Fano, and so Fano is an island off the coast of Denmark, and it's covered in Second World War Nazi bunkers, concrete bunkers, from the Atlantic Wall. And we went there on a trip for a long weekend where I basically made all the work, and Ben was helping me.
Yeah, I was your assistant for a day.
Yeah. And we were, so to get into these things, they're all sort of closed up now. Well, a lot of them are closed up, so you have to crawl in through these tiny little spaces between
basically
bricked up walls.
People had knocked one breeze block out of a bricked up doorway.
So you get inside, and then it's absolutely pitch black, and that's half full of water and all sorts of things. There was one that looked like someone had been living in there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting place. But
often you're crawling through like this tiny little hole, and then there's like a 8-foot drop.
Yeah.
Don't know what's down there. I think if we were to go back and do that again, I'm not sure I'd go into a lot of those places.
No. I remember when you stood in that big puddle as well that had a dead bird in it, and it all filled up your shoe, and you had to
It looked like a dead pigeon a dead penguin or something. It was
a puffin or something like that.
Yeah, it was big and it was really waxy looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little bit sketchy, but really nice series of works. We built an Anderson shelter in the middle of the gallery as well.
Yeah, that was good. That was at Doomed Gallery with Matt Martin, who we had on episode 21.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah.
So yeah.
Shout out.
I'm
going to stop saying shout out because obviously that kind of thing is inevitable. All right, so let's go with one of the big questions that we do ask everyone. What piece of advice would you give to an early career artist?
I think a really important one is to think of yourself as a business, to take that side of things seriously, because if you're looking to sort of make it further with galleries or exhibitions, working with curators, or just working with anyone really and collaborating, it's good to think of yourself as a business, because that sort of it paints you in a good light, that you're switched on to the admin side of things, which is really important. Having numerous spreadsheets going about where your works are going, who's buying them, until you get gallery representation. Even if you do, as gallery representation is becoming slightly less important these days, there are other ways to get your work out there and to connect with buyers and collectors.
A lot of a lot of artists seem to just be working with whoever they like now. Exhibiting all over the world. So
yeah, I think taking the admin side of things seriously is important. Also, just being easy to work with, I think, is a massive thing. Answering emails promptly, being available, and just not being a diva is good.
Yeah, I would second all of that advice. Would you advise more artists to have a little dabble in curation? And maybe would you advise more curators to have a little bit of a dabble in creation?
Yeah, I think it's always helpful. I think to have clearly defined roles when it comes to exhibitions is good, though, to have a curator and an artist separate.
Yeah.
But I think that having some experience in curation or vice versa is definitely useful. I think it makes you look at things differently.
Yeah. And like you were saying, it makes you maybe understand the position of the other side. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and I think obviously both sides of those things are very highly skilled in their own right. Yeah. So you don't think you can become a master of both. But are we masters of both, or are we masters of neither? Because we spread ourselves too thin. I don't know. That's a good point. Probably neither. Well, we try our best. Yeah. That's all anyone can ask. I had a question in my mind then, but it's gone. All right. Another one that I scribbled down. What about the art world would you change if you had a magic wand? Elitism in it. Snobbishness. I think is really counterproductive. And you find it a lot walking into certain galleries and name names. No. And yeah, just the snootishness. Snootiness. Yeah. I think we a snooty gallery? I'd hope not.
But yeah, I think it's not very nice, is it? And
The snobby galleries know they're snobby.
probably not. No.
Maybe we are.
In
we
fact,
don't
they
know.
probably don't give a shit either, because they're just
Yeah.
like, if you just don't walk in wearing a suit, and then they're not interested because they think you haven't got any money to buy any work. So
Maybe we are the epitome of an elitist gallery. We just don't know it.
maybe.
All right. Why do we exhibit paintings?
As Delphian?
You're a photographer. I've been doing paintings recently.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we didn't start out to do that, did we? Our first solo exhibition we put on was a photography show, Carson Lancaster. But I don't know. I think maybe the first open call that we did, changed our audience, I think, on Instagram.
And also maybe changed it. Yeah. Sorry to butt in. I haven't thought about that before. But yeah, I think you're right. It opened us up to a lot more artwork that we didn't know before.
Yeah. And then instantly after that, we were being exposed to a lot of contemporary painting, which I think then influenced our output.
Yeah, it influences your tastes, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not to say that we'd never show photography or something.
Well, we still do.
We still do. But yeah, I think it's what you're around a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, we're exposed to more painting, maybe.
Yeah.
And I suppose most people that we know are painters.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, maybe it's something. Do you think we need to make more of a conscious effort to alter that?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. All right.
Something to think about for 2021.
All right. So what work what's your next project?
I've been working on a project I haven't worked on it for a while now, but it's been ongoing for a couple of years. A project about Unit 731 in Harbin in China. So I'm planning on going back there again soon once coronavirus disappears. And
Coronavirus? I haven't heard of it.
yeah, when the borders open up again, they go back to China and make some more. But I've been there a couple of times now, making work about Unit 731, which was a Second World War human testing lab, basically, run by the Japanese. So the buildings are still there, and so I've been documenting the location of it. A lot of it was destroyed when the war finished, but there's still quite a lot there, and then I'm going to be trying to get in contact with some survivors as well, who have lived through it and who still live with the consequences of it years later.
Is there a unifying kind of theme or something that runs through most of your work? And is it harder to feel like you have a definable style in photography?
I think aesthetically I have a style.
I mean, do you think, say if for a painter, I think anything that we paint as individuals will kind of look individual. Is it harder to do that as a photographer?
Yeah, I think maybe. Yeah. I think technique-wise, there's only so much you can do with a camera, isn't there? I don't know. I think thematically, my work, quite a lot of my projects have been to do with social injustices, I suppose, in a broader term.
I think a lot of your work is about like the absence of people, and maybe the effect that they've had on their surroundings. Yeah,
it's almost like the scars that they've left behind, isn't it? Horrible things that have happened involving people, but then the absence of people documented in photographs.
Yeah. So like I can't remember the series. What was it called? The one that in your grandparents' house.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit.
So it was called Relics, and it was a show about when my granddad died and my gran moved into a home, nursing home. The house was going to be sold off. And so my family asked me if I wanted to go and have a look around and see if there was anything in particular that I wanted to keep of theirs before the contents was sold. So I went there and realised that it was sort of the last time to document a space that had played such a huge role in my growing up. So I went back and took photos of the whole place. It had always been a house that was so full of life, with my grandparents there and family there and stuff, and for it to be empty, so empty and quiet, was a very odd experience. Yeah, so that resulted in a book and an exhibition. And you came with me, didn't you, to help move some of the stuff up?
Yeah, that was a very strange experience for me, because I was we only had like one day to do it, didn't we? Mm. So I had to come and we had to basically rifle through the possessions of these people that I'd never met and decide what was worth keeping and what wasn't. Mm. It was very, it was a strange experience. But then the exhibition was really nice because it was, well, firstly, there was the photographs documenting the house, but then also you salvaged a lot of physical items and used them sculpturally to make the exhibition space a little bit more like the space that you'd photographed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to note that I think that project came about almost out of necessity. You felt like you needed to document this this space. And say Fano was this island that we went to, that we documented, that you had no real personal connection with. Mm. And yet the way that you photographed both was very much in a way that was like recording a space after the humans had essentially left. Yeah. And how they were both really still. I think both series.
I think a lot of my work, it's like that. Yeah. It has a stillness to it. But again, that's because of the absence of people in it. But yeah, I like that. I like that feeling in photographs. It opens up lots of questions about what's happened before, why the feeling of the space has changed, lots of things. So I very rarely photograph people. Mm. And it's also because I'm quite a shy person as well, so it makes me feel uncomfortable. I try and avoid it at all costs, really. So yeah, photographing without people is a dream, really.
Where are all these? That's interesting, because you started photographing people BMXing.
Yeah.
Where are all these photos of people BMXing? You ever thought about using them?
Under my bed at my parents' house, probably. No, I don't think I'd ever use any of those. No, I mean they're a document of a time, but they don't really have much artistic value, I wouldn't say.
Do you think the BMXing and that subculture has influenced your artistic direction going forward? Because I was a skateboarder.
Yeah.
I think I look at things through that prism always now.
I think the way that I've approached shows definitely is influenced by that, because it comes from a sort of punk DIY sort of ethos. You just put on your own shows, and blue tack works up on the wall and sort of make it happen on your own. Yeah. And that was always a BMX type thing. Build ramps and build jumps, dirt jumps and stuff. And so, yeah, I think that sort of outlook on stuff has definitely carried across into photography.
Yeah, I can see how it would. All right, so the coronavirus special has ended, or will end, with this question. What do you do when you're struggling for inspiration? I
go out and walk around as much as possible, just with a camera in my bag, and just walk with no purpose. I think that's really good for opening you up into just looking at things and seeing what's around you. And it's always easier for me to find inspiration when I'm in an area or a location that I'm not used to, and which makes it quite tricky to make work on a daily basis, because everything becomes normal to you in your immediate surroundings. So to go out with the purpose of not taking photos especially, but just to sort of look, I think is really good at opening you up and making you see things that maybe you wouldn't see on your daily routine, that can sort of bring about inspiration. Because when you're abroad, or when you're in a different location, or when you're covering something for a particular purpose, it's much easier to find inspiration and see interesting shots, because you're not used to it. Everything's new. But when things become old, it can become a little bit stale maybe. And Cool.
All right. Well then, that can be the end of this podcast. Thank you for listening, and wash your hands.
Bye.